I'm building what I call a camp house shed in my backyard, complete with premium finishes, a fire pit, and even some secret college football watching capabilities. I'll be detailing that entire build in this series, including an actual cost breakdown as I go. Now, I've never done anything like this before, so sit back and enjoy my journey towards shed greatness.
Oh, shit. I've had this wild idea in my head for the past year that I wanted to take this wooded back corner of our lot and turn it into a little hangout spot where we as a family can feel like we're camping in the woods without leaving suburbia. Now, our lot is only about 3/4 of an acre, but we've got this weird back corner behind some trees that makes it feel a lot more secluded than it actually is. I mean, we're standing where the shed's gonna go, and that's our house right there. So at first I thought I could just build a cool fire pit area where we could all hang out and roast marshmallows, but to be honest, there's a lot of room back here. And surely I could think of something cool that takes advantage of this otherwise wasted space. And this is where the camp house shed concept came from. But you see, I don't want to put just any old shed right here. No. If there's an opportunity to go overkill on something, I'm your guy. So what I did was designed a 12-foot by 16-foot shed with some design features that kind of make it look like it should belong in the mountains or something. At least, that's what I was going for. I then paid an architect to do a full rendering just to make sure it matched what was in my head. Now eventually I'm gonna add the fire pit, some hardscape, some cool design features, and even some bonus entertainment options for watching maybe some college football on those cool fall days. But you'll have to stick around to the end to see what I've got planned there. But before any of that, we've got to clear this area and prep it for the foundation.
So there's this outlet curiously sitting here that I needed to move, and my first thought was, sweet, I already have some power run out here. But I quickly realized that that wire was actually running away from my house and into an outdoor junction box in my neighbor's backyard. This was here long before I moved in, so there must have been some confusion on where the property lines were. So I just dug it up and moved it back to his yard. Alright, now onto the manly stuff. You know, chopping big timber with a tiny electric chainsaw. Last time my dad was here, he made fun of me for having it, called it a cute toy, but hey, I think it's doing just fine. Thanks, Dad. Now there was one tree I was pretty excited about because I've always thought it'd be fun to cut one down. So with a fresh battery in my workhorse, I summoned my inner logger and started cutting notches. Because that's what I thought you do, right? And after chopping it up into miniature future firewood, I got the last bit cleared out of the way. Now it turns out that cutting down the actual tree part is pretty easy. Getting the stump to go away, now that's a different story. I spent the better part of 20 minutes getting a solid shoulder workout in, wailing away at this thing. And you can see it's not exactly a big tree, but my God, massive respect to settlers that had to clear fields just so they can grow food. I admitted defeat and left this mutilated little stump as a warning to other trees to, not fall over, I guess. I'll come back and finish this off, but the stump isn't actually in the way of the foundation at all. I just wanted to take it out so we'd have room to work. The last bit of clearing was just moving as much loose material as I could just so we could have a nice clean slate. Now it's time to lay out where the heck this thing is actually going to sit. Now I'm just doing a rough layout here just to get an idea of how much room I'll have on either side and out front for the eventual fire pit. My permit states that I just need to be at least 8 feet off of the property line, but I'm planning on being more like 11 or 13 feet, so should be no problem. This slab I'm laying out is 16 feet by 15 feet to include a little 3-foot porch on the front of the shed. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect, it's just approximate for now. We still have to grade this area flat, so all this will get messed up anyways.
So I hired a concrete guy to help me pour the slab, and I brought him out here, and as soon as he saw it, he goes, "Oh dude, you need some dirt." And I said, "We have dirt, look, we're surrounded by dirt." He goes, "No, you need like 5 yards of dirt to bring that back corner up to level." So I ordered 5 yards of dirt and dumped it in my driveway. And then I got to do something that I've wanted to do for this whole project, which is rent something to drive and do stuff with. So I rented this little thing called a Georgia buggy, which is like a little miniature dump truck that's gonna help me bring the dirt back here and is gonna help carry the concrete from the street where the truck's gonna show up back here to the slab. So now I just gotta move 5 yards of dirt from there to here. Ugh.
So the thought of a powered buggy to help me haul all this dirt sounded amazing, until I realized that I still need to load said buggy 1 shovel at a time. I did at least get to break up the shoveling by driving this little buggy back to the shed site, but again, the novelty wore off after about 2 trips. Now this fill dirt was full of clay and it was really wet, so it didn't exactly dump well. Which means that I got to not only shovel on the front end, but also here. Fun times. And it turns out that a rake works way better than a shovel. Now I did get the opportunity to have a teachable moment with my son about hard work and manual labor, to which he was instantly bored with and instead suggested I should just swim through the dirt to go faster. Kids these days. And it's too bad my son went inside because I could have shared another teachable moment when I almost got bucked off of this Bronco. Turns out that little single wheel in the back goes a little crazy when you hit things like tree roots. Now all I'm trying to do here is focus on putting dirt in the low areas and around the perimeter where the forms will sit. I didn't really use any kind of level or string gauge, but apparently my eyeballs were pretty well calibrated because it was pretty damn close to level. And finally, I found myself staring at the last few chunks of impossibly heavy clay and got those loaded up, just in time for my wife to come out, which I thought was to express her sheer appreciation for my physical prowess. But no, it was just to tell me to hurry up because dinner was almost ready. The last bit of work was to knock down the high spots here and use the dirt to try and fill in the center as much as I could. I did wet down this pile and try to tamp down and compact it as much as I could ahead of the concrete guy showing up the next day to lay forms. This is what will be the back wall of the shed and really the only important placement of this pad. I needed to clear an 8-foot easement to the left and towards the back of my property. I ended up putting the shed well within the boundary, so exact placement really wasn't that critical. And here you can see Dustin, my concrete guy, spreading out some more dirt and digging some footers that he suggests we put in around the perimeter of the slab. This is because the back of the slab is sitting on almost all fill dirt at this point. And then he made one last pass trying to compact down the dirt, especially at the base of the footers that he just dug. And next up was to lay down the under slab membrane. This will act as a moisture and vapor barrier between the dirt and the slab, keeping things nice and dry inside. A layer of gravel here would effectively do the same thing by creating a capillary break for the water. Yeah, I Googled the shit out of that. Then comes rebar, which he said really only needed it in the footers themselves, but I got enough to spread throughout the whole slab as well. Because you know what, why not? And you're probably noticing that the front wall of the form is off. This is intentional because we're going to be driving into the slab area to pour with the Georgia buggy. Once most of the concrete is in place, we'll slap on that last form board and finish the pour.
All right, so here we are, day of the pour. Truck is supposed to be here in about 30 minutes. Had some hiccups. They were actually supposed to be here last week. Truck canceled last minute, super frustrating, but that's okay, because we're gonna get it done today. Now the guy I hired to help me do the concrete, Dustin, he said that this is probably gonna be the most bulletproof shed slab he's ever made, just based on the fact that we've got footers all the way around, like a miniature house foundation. We've got tons of rebar, and even though we only need about a 4-inch slab, that's gonna end up being closer to a 6-inch slab. Plus he's gonna come and dig piers over in the fill dirt area. Oh, and we reinforce the concrete with fiberglass. So the tiny lawnmower that I'm gonna park in here should be okay. And all that's left to it is to do it. So we're gonna use our Georgia buggy, which I have until 2 p.m. today to haul the concrete back and forth, and we'll get this thing poured.
Now you may be wondering why this gentleman is driving around what seems like the entire perimeter of my house just to get back to the slab location. Well, that's because the more direct route we originally planned on using just happened to have a giant underground bee or yellow jacket hive that got very angry when the Georgia buggy drove by. And my luck, Dustin is deathly allergic to them. So though we may burn a bit more gas and take a little longer, we can make this alternate route work. On top of spreading the concrete periodically, Dustin also stopped to reset the rebar as he went. It would get pushed to the bottom of the slab, so he would lift it out and replace it back in the middle. And this is where I learned that those little rebar chairs are basically useless. And I just gotta say, watching him work at the pace he's working is exactly why I'm glad I paid someone to do this. I would have been an absolute nervous wreck right about now, trying to make sure I'm getting everything level and situated and doing everything in the right order. And as he dumped the last load, he looked at me nervously and said, "That's it. That's 5 yards in the truck," which meant that we had exactly enough concrete to finish. He fully expected us to have a lot left over that we could use to pour something like a small ramp with on the side of the shed. And for context, a standard shed slab this size with a 4-inch depth would require 3 yards. We used 5. This area where you're standing now will be the small porch on the front of the shed, so we're going to add some slope away from the structure to help with drainage. Even though it's going to be covered, it's still a smart thing to do. Watching him go through the finishing steps after the slab had a chance to tighten up was pretty cool. I could really appreciate the skill needed to get a really smooth finish. And yes, I opted to go with a smooth finish here rather than a broom finish because, well, I wanted to. I'm not really worried about the floor being slippery, which actually sounds exactly like famous last words, come to think of it. All right, let's talk about costs up to this point. For the 5 yards of fill dirt I ordered, I paid $156. For the internal materials for the slab, which I'll call the slab structure, things like rebar, underlayment, stuff like that, cost me $230. Renting the Georgia buggy plus a trailer for 1 week was $475. The concrete truck and 5 yards of fiber reinforced concrete was $1,062. And finally, Dustin's labor to set the forms, pour the concrete, do all the finishing was $1,200. Which makes the grand total for the foundation $3,123.
So after letting it cure for a couple of days and then removing all the forms, I'm left with a giant rectangle of concrete. At least it should be a rectangle, right? You see, when I went to go pull the diagonals of the slab, I quickly found out that one diagonal was 4 inches longer than the other.
Oh, shit.
Not 1/4 of an inch, 4 inches. Which 4 inches on a house slab is a lot, but on a little shed slab like this, that is a ton. See, my concrete guy told me that when he was setting the forms, he was within 1/2 inch on the diagonals. So something must have happened between that and the pour, which got everything all cattywampus. And this highlights one of the biggest takeaways I have from this, which is trust but verify. So what I now need to figure out is what kind of shape do I have? Do I have a parallelogram? Do I have a rhombus? Do I have some other shape that exists that I'm not thinking of right now? So the first thing I did is measured the squareness at each corner using the 3-4-5 method, where you measure 3 feet out on one side, 4 feet out on the other, and the hypotenuse should be 5 feet on the dot. With that all figured out, now I need to measure each side. Luckily, both the front and the back are exactly the same length at 16 feet 1/4 inches, and each side are roughly the same length at just under 15 inches. And what I found was that this back corner is closest to 90 degrees, although slightly acute or less than 90. This front corner is also slightly acute, less than 90, and both of these corners are slightly over 90. So this means that I have a shed slab that is a parallelogram. Cool. But you know what they say, when life gives you parallelograms, make lemonade. Look, at the end of the day, I'm making a shed. And foundations are not perfect everywhere, so we can get around this by just being strategic on how we frame it. So what I'll have to do is shorten up the total length of the shed, which was 16 feet, to slightly less, and then I'll have a little tiny skinny pie shape of foundation on each side, which I think once we add the siding and the trim and all that stuff, will get hidden otherwise, and I won't have water intrusion of water landing on the pad and then coming into the shed. Sometimes things just don't go as planned, but we will adapt and overcome. I actually had lumber show up this morning, so I'm gonna get started framing on this thing, but you're gonna have to wait till the next episode for that. So while you're here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so that you know when the next episode comes out, because I know you're gonna forget. I know that you'll be dying to find out how this parallelogram shed turns out. Thank y'all for watching, I really appreciate it, and until the next video, keep pursuing shed greatness.